The morning sky over Nevada turned white as the object fell from space. Dr. Alex Carter was drinking coffee in his Las Vegas hotel room when the flash lit up the desert like a second sun. The ground shook so hard that his coffee mug fell and broke on the floor. Alex worked as a scientist who studied old things that people dug up from the ground. But this was different. This was something from the stars. The phone in his room started ringing. It was his boss from the university. Alex, get to the airport now. The military needs you in the desert. Something big just crashed. 2 hours later, Alex sat in a helicopter flying over the Nevada desert. Below him was a crater so large he could not see the edges. In the center of the crater sat something that made his heart race. It was a ship, but not like any ship made by humans. The alien vessel was huge. It looked like a dark metal mountain that had fallen from the sky. Strange symbols covered its surface, and parts of it glowed with a soft blue light. Smoke rose from several places where the ship was broken. Commander Jake Sullivan sat next to Alex in the helicopter. Jake was a tall man with short gray hair, who worked for the Space Force. He had seen many strange things in his job, but nothing like this. "How big do you think it is?" Jake asked, looking down at the ship. Alex shook his head. "It's bigger than anything we've ever built. Maybe the size of a small city." The helicopter landed near a group of military tents. Soldiers ran everywhere, setting up equipment and creating a safe area around the crash site. Alex could see that they were scared but trying to hide it. General Bob Hayes met them as they got out of the helicopter. He was a short, thick man with a serious face. "Dr. Carter, we need you to help us understand what we're looking at. Commander Sullivan will lead the security team." Alex nodded. "Have you tried to get inside yet?" "We found an opening about an hour ago," the general said. "But we're waiting for you before we go in. We don't know if it's safe." They walked toward the ship. Up close, Alex could see that the metal was not like anything from Earth. It seemed to shift color as he looked at it, going from black to deep, blue to purple. The symbols on the surface moved slightly like they were alive. "There," Jake pointed to a large crack in the ship's side. "That's our way in." A team of 6 people prepared to enter the ship. Alex carried a camera and tools to study anything they found. Jake and 3 soldiers carried weapons and lights. Lisa Park, a young woman who studied languages, carried a computer to record any writing they might find. Lisa was nervous. She kept checking her equipment and fixing her blonde hair. "What if there are aliens still alive in there?" she asked. "Then we'll deal with it," Jake said calmly. "But the sensors show no life signs. The ship seems empty." They climbed through the crack into the alien vessel. Alex's flashlight showed walls covered in more of the strange symbols. The air inside smelled like metal and something else he could not name. The inside of the ship was huge. They walked through hallways tall enough for giants. Everything glowed, with a faint light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Their footsteps echoed in the empty spaces. "Look at this," Lisa said, stopping at a wall covered in symbols. She took pictures with her camera. "These aren't random. This is definitely some kind of writing." They walked deeper into the ship. Jake led the way, his weapon ready. But they found no aliens, living or dead. The ship was completely empty, like everyone had just disappeared. In what looked like a control room, they found their first big discovery. Banks of strange computers lined the walls. Screens showed star maps and symbols Alex had never seen. In the center of the room sat a large chair that seemed made for someone much taller than a human. "This must be where they flew the ship," Alex said. He took pictures of everything. Lisa found something even more interesting. On one wall was a panel covered in what looked like a story told in pictures. It showed stick figures of tall, thin aliens running from something dark and scary. "I think this tells what happened to them," Lisa said, studying the pictures. "They were running from something." Jake found the ship's main computer. It was a tall black tower that hummed with power. Strange lights moved up and down inside it, like liquid lightning. "Can we take this back to study?" Jake asked. Alex shook his head. "It's too big, and we don't know how to move it safely. But maybe Lisa can figure out how to read what's on it." They spent 6 hours exploring the ship. They found weapons that looked like crystal rods, rooms full of broken machines, and storage areas that held things they could not understand. But the most important discovery came when Lisa found the ship's log files. The computer showed her pictures and symbols that seemed to tell a story. With her knowledge of languages and a lot of hard work, she began to understand what the pictures meant. The ship belonged to something called the Zephyrian Empire, Lisa explained as they sat in the military camp that night. They were running from an enemy they called the Devourers. These Devourers destroyed their whole civilization. Alex felt cold despite the desert heat. What kind of enemy could destroy an entire civilization that built ships like this? Lisa looked at her notes. According to this, the Devourers are machines, smart machines that eat entire star systems. The Zephyrians fought them for hundreds of years but always lost. Jake studied the star maps they had copied from the ship. "Where are these Devourers now?" Lisa pointed to marks on the map. "If I'm reading this right, they're still out there, and they're moving toward our part of the galaxy." The three of them sat in silence, thinking about what this meant. An enemy that could destroy advanced aliens might one day come for Earth. "How long do we have?" Alex asked. Lisa did more calculations with the star charts. Maybe 50 years, maybe less. That night, Alex could not sleep. He looked up at the stars and wondered which one might bring humanity's greatest challenge. But he also felt something else: hope. The aliens had left them a gift, even if they did not mean to. The ship was full of technology beyond human understanding. If humans could learn from it, maybe they could be ready when the Devourers came. Maybe they could even fight back. 5 years had passed since the alien ship crashed in Nevada. The world had changed in ways most people could not see. Hidden in underground labs and secret facilities, the best minds on Earth worked to understand the technology that had fallen from the stars. Dr. Ben Rodriguez walked through the main laboratory of Project Prometheus. The project was humanity's biggest secret. Scientists from every country worked together to study the alien ship. Ben had left his job at NASA to lead. This work, and every day, brought new surprises. "Good morning, Ben," called Colonel Amy Foster as she joined him. Amy was a former Air Force pilot who now managed the project's day-to-day operations. She was tough but fair, and the scientists respected her. "Any breakthroughs today?" Ben asked as they walked past tables covered with alien devices. Amy smiled. "Kate thinks she's figured out how their power system works, and Tony has something to show you that will blow your mind." They found Dr. Kate Morgan in the physics lab. Kate was a brilliant woman who had spent years studying how energy and matter worked. She stood in front of a whiteboard covered with equations that would confuse most people. "The aliens use something called quantum foam," Kate explained, pointing to her drawings. "It's the tiny bubbles of energy that exist in empty space. They learned how to grab these bubbles and squeeze power out of them." Ben studied the equations. Even with his engineering background, the math was hard to follow. Can we copy their method? Kate shook her head. That's the problem. We don't have the materials they used. Their whole technology is based on metals and crystals we've never seen before. This was the challenge that had frustrated the team for years. The aliens were so advanced that humans could barely understand their basic ideas, let alone copy them. But in the engineering workshop, Blake had a different approach. Tony had been a car mechanic before the project recruited him. He did not have fancy degrees, but he understood how things worked in ways that surprised the scientists. Look at this, Tony said, showing them a device he had built. It looked like a car engine crossed with a computer. Cables and wires connected strange metal parts that hummed with energy. I can't make their power crystals, Tony explained, but I can make something that does the same job using parts we have. It's not as pretty, but it works better. He turned on the device. The humming got louder and lights began to glow. A screen showed numbers that made Kate's eyes go wide. This is producing 30% more power than the alien version, Kate said in amazement. Tony grinned. Sometimes the simple way is better. The aliens made everything perfect and beautiful, but perfect things break easy. This thing is built like a truck. Word of Tony's success spread through the project. Other teams began to think differently about the alien technology. Instead of trying to copy it exactly, they started asking how to make it work with human methods. In the flight testing facility, pilot Sam Davis was learning to fly humanity's first hybrid fighter. The ship combined alien power systems with human controls and weapons. It looked strange, like someone had mixed a jet fighter with a spaceship. How does it handle? Amy asked over the radio as Sam flew practice missions. Like nothing I've ever flown, Sam replied. It responds to thoughts as much as controls. But I'm learning to work with it instead of fighting it. The breakthrough in piloting came when Sam stopped trying to fly the ship like a normal aircraft. The alien technology wanted to work with the pilot's mind. When Sam relaxed and trusted the ship, amazing things happened. During one test flight, Sam accidentally broke the sound barrier without making a sonic boom. The ship had somehow moved through the air without disturbing it. When he landed, the engineering team rushed to understand what had happened. The ship bent space around itself, Kate explained after studying the data. You didn't fly through the air. You made the air move around you. Dr. Maya Thompson worked on the weapons team. Maya was a young engineer who specialized in taking things apart to see how they worked. She had spent months studying the crystal rods they found on the alien ship. These aren't really weapons, Maya told the team during a meeting. They're tools that change energy into matter and back again. The aliens use them for everything. Cutting, building, healing. She demonstrated with a prototype she had built. The device looked like a flashlight made of glass and metal. When Maya pointed it at a steel plate and pressed a button, the metal simply disappeared. Where did it go? Ben asked. Nowhere, Maya replied. I convinced the universe that it was never there. The device removes things from time itself. This discovery opened up new possibilities. If humans could build weapons that erased things from existence, they might have a chance against the Devourers. But the real breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Dr. Rick Hayes had been hired to work on computer systems. Before the project, Rick had designed video games and military training programs. The alien computers are too logical, Rick explained to Amy and Ben. They follow rules perfectly, but they can't think outside those rules. Human minds are different. We break rules all the time. Rick had been working with a team of programmers to create artificial intelligence that thought like humans instead of like aliens. These AIs could be unpredictable and creative in ways that pure logic could not match. "Watch this," Rick said, showing them a simulation. Two computer players fought a space battle. One used perfect alien logic. The other used Rick's human-style AI. The human AI won by doing something the alien AI never expected. It pretended to retreat, then attacked from a direction that should have been impossible. "Aliens think in straight lines," Rick explained. "Humans think in circles, spirals, and zigzags. Our chaos is our strength." As the 5-year mark approached, the project had achieved something amazing. They had not just copied alien technology. They had improved it by making it more human. The hybrid ships were tougher and more flexible than the original alien designs. The weapons hit harder and worked in conditions that would break alien equipment. The computers could solve problems that had stumped alien minds for centuries. But the most important discovery was about humans themselves. The alien technology worked better with human operators than it ever had with aliens. Human creativity and unpredictability made the machines perform beyond their original design. Colonel Amy Foster stood in the main lab, looking at all the devices and inventions that filled the room. 5 years ago, this had been an empty underground bunker. Now it was humanity's secret weapon factory. "Do you think we'll be ready when they come?" she asked Ben. Ben looked around at the incredible technology their teams had created. Machines that bent space and time, weapons that could erase matter from existence, and ships that flew by convincing reality to move around them. "I think we'll surprise them," Ben said with a smile. "The Devourers have conquered aliens who thought like machines, but they've never faced anything like us." Amy nodded. The next phase of the project would be even more ambitious. They would build not just weapons and ships, but entirely new ways of fighting that no alien mind had ever imagined. The countdown to humanity's greatest test had begun. But for the first time since the ship crashed, they felt ready to face whatever came from the stars. 10 years had passed since the crash, and humanity was doing things that should have been impossible. In laboratories around the world, human engineers were breaking the rules of physics and making them work in new ways. Maya Thompson stood in front of her latest creation. The weapon looked simple, just a silver tube about the size of a baseball bat. But what it could do would have terrified the aliens who built the original ship. "Show me again," said General Bob Hayes, who had come to see the demonstration. Maya pointed the device at a concrete block sitting 50 feet away. She pressed a button, and the block simply stopped existing. It did not explode or melt or turn to dust. One moment it was there, and the next moment it was not. "You're not destroying it," Maya explained. "You're removing it from the timeline. As far as the universe is concerned, that block was never built." The general stared at the empty space where the block had been. "What happens if you use this on a person?" Maya shook her head. "We don't test it on living things, but in theory they would never have existed. Everyone would forget they were ever born." This was the kind of impossible technology that had made humanity famous throughout the hidden research community. The aliens had built machines that followed the laws of physics. Humans built machines that convinced physics to follow new laws. Dr. Rick Hayes had also been busy. His team of former game designers and military experts had created something the aliens never imagined: artificial intelligence that could lie, cheat, and fight dirty. Traditional AI follows logical patterns, Rick explained to a group of visiting generals. Our AI thinks like a human teenager, creative, unpredictable, and willing to break any rule to win. He showed them a battle simulation. A human ship faced 3 alien vessels with superior firepower. The human AI analyzed the situation for exactly 2 seconds, then did something completely crazy. It flew straight at the enemy ships while broadcasting a message that said, "I surrender." When the aliens moved in to capture it, the human ship exploded, except it was not really there. The real ship attacked from behind while the aliens were confused by a holographic decoy. "The alien AIs cannot understand deception," Rick said. "They're too logical to lie effectively, but our AIs lie so well they sometimes fool themselves." In another part of the facility, Carl Stone was doing something that made even the engineers nervous. Carl had been a blacksmith before the project. Recruited him. He made art from metal using ancient techniques passed down for generations. But now Carl was forging something that did not belong in any normal universe. He worked with crystallized space-time, a material that existed partially outside of reality. "Metal has memory," Carl explained as he hammered at something that looked like liquid starlight. "Iron remembers being in the earth. Steel remembers the fire that forged it. This stuff remembers being nothing at all." The tools Carl made were virtually indestructible. A sword made from crystallized space-time could cut through anything because it technically existed before whatever it was cutting. A shield made from the same material could not be broken because it had never been whole to begin with. Captain Nina Cross was the first person brave enough to command a ship built entirely with human impossible technology. The UES Defiance looked like someone had tried to build a spaceship while having a fever dream. Parts of the ship seemed to exist in different dimensions at the same time. The engines did not push the ship through space. They convinced space to move around the ship. The weapons fired bullets made of crystallized time that hit targets before they were shot. "How does it feel to command impossible technology?" asked Amy Foster during Nina's first mission report. Nina laughed, "Like trying to ride a lightning bolt while juggling fire. The ship wants to do things that don't make sense. Yesterday we accidentally flew backwards through time by 6 hours. This accidental time travel led to humanity's next breakthrough. Engineers discovered that their impossible technology was naturally bending time and space. They were not just building ships and weapons. They were creating machines that could rewrite reality. Dr. Grace Kelly led the team studying these time effects. Grace was a physicist who specialized in understanding things that should not exist. "We're not traveling through time," Grace explained. "We're creating small bubbles where time works differently. Inside these bubbles, effects can happen before causes." She demonstrated with a simple device that looked like a snow globe filled with glowing mist. When Grace shook it, the mist began to glow before she actually shook it. "This could let us build defenses that activate before they're attacked," Grace said. "Or weapons that hit targets before they're fired." The implications were staggering. If humanity could master time manipulation, they could fight battles in the past, present, and future simultaneously. But the most amazing discovery came from an unexpected source. Dr. Eddie Clark was a theoretical physicist who studied the deepest mysteries of the universe. Eddie had been working on a project so crazy that even the impossible technology team thought he was nuts. "What if we don't just break the laws of physics?" Eddie asked during a team meeting. "What if we give ourselves the power to write new ones?" Eddie's impossibility engine was the size of a small building. It combined every breakthrough humanity had made: time manipulation, reality-bending weapons, crystallized space-time, and AI that could think in impossible ways. "Flip the switch," Eddie said to his assistant. When the machine turned on, strange things began happening throughout the facility. Coffee cups fell upward, clocks ran backwards. One scientist found that she could walk through walls by believing hard enough that they were not there. "We've created a zone where human imagination becomes natural law," Eddie explained, grinning like a child with a new toy. "Inside this field, anything we can dream up becomes possible." The military applications were obvious. An army equipped with impossibility technology could do things that would drive enemy computers insane trying to analyze them. But Eddie and his team were thinking bigger. What if they could extend the impossibility field to cover entire star systems? What if they could change the laws of physics across the galaxy? As news of these breakthroughs spread through the project, excitement mixed with fear. Humanity was developing power that could reshape reality itself. With that power came enormous responsibility. Colonel Amy Foster called a meeting of all the project leaders. Scientists, engineers, and military officers gathered in the main conference room to discuss what they had created. "We've gone beyond copying alien technology," Amy said. "We're building things that the aliens never imagined. The question is, are we ready for the consequences?" Dr. Ben Rodriguez nodded. "We've always known this was dangerous, but the devourers are still coming. In 40 years, maybe less, they'll reach our star system. We need every advantage we can get." Maya Thompson raised her hand. "What if our impossible technology is what saves not just humanity, but every species in the galaxy? The aliens lost because they followed rules. We're learning to write our own rules." As the meeting continued, one thing became clear. Humanity was no longer just preparing to defend Earth. They were becoming something the galaxy had never seen before, a species that could turn imagination into reality. The countdown to the Devourer invasion continued. But now humanity was not just ready to fight. They were ready to change the very nature of war itself. In secret facilities around the world, humans worked with technology that should not exist, building weapons that defied logic and preparing for a battle that would determine whether the galaxy remained a place of rigid physical laws or became a realm where creativity and imagination could reshape reality itself. The age of impossible had begun. 15 years after the crash, humanity took its biggest step yet. The UES Explorer, built with impossible technology, launched on its first mission beyond the solar system. Admiral Jack Murphy commanded the ship, while Dr. Grace Kelly led the science team. The Explorer was unlike any ship ever built. Its hull shimmered with crystallized space-time, and its engines moved space itself rather than flying through it. Inside the ship, reality worked according to human rules instead of alien physics. "Jump drive ready," announced the pilot, Sam Davis, who had become humanity's best impossible technology operator. "Destination, Kepler 442 system." The jump felt strange. Instead of moving through space, the ship convinced the universe that it had always been at its destination. One moment they were near Earth, and the next they were 20 light-years away. "Long-range sensors are picking up something unusual," reported Dr. Helen Wright, the mission's alien life specialist. "There are structures in the asteroid belt that don't look natural." As they approached, the crew discovered something amazing. Hidden inside hollowed-out asteroids were cities built by aliens who were still alive. These beings had been hiding from the devourers for thousands of years. The first contact happened when a small alien ship approached the Explorer. The ship was made of living crystal that pulsed with gentle light. Admiral Murphy ordered his crew to keep their weapons powered down and send peaceful signals. The alien who appeared on their communication screen was unlike anything they had imagined. It looked like a tall, graceful tree made of blue crystal. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a soft breeze. "I am Harmony of distant stars," the alien said in perfect English. "We have been watching your species since your impossible ship fell from the sky. You have done things that should not be possible." Dr. Grace Kelly stepped forward. "You've been watching us? How do you know our language?" "We learned it from the signals your world broadcasts into space," Harmony replied. "But more importantly, we have been studying the energy patterns from your technology. You create impossibilities as easily as we breathe." The alien ship docked with the Explorer, and Harmony came aboard. Up close, the crystal being was even more beautiful. Light flowed through its body like liquid music, and its movements were graceful beyond description. "We are the Katuri," Harmony explained, as Grace led it through the ship. "We are the last survivors of our civilization. The Devourers destroyed our home worlds 3,000 years ago." Helen Wright asked the question everyone was thinking. "How did you survive when your civilization was so advanced?" Harmony's crystalline form dimmed with sadness. "We survived by hiding and running. The Devourers are perfect hunters of logical minds. They can predict any rational response to their attacks. So we became irrational. We scattered into small groups and hid in places where logic said no one could live." Admiral Murphy gathered his crew in the main conference room to hear Harmony's story. The alien stood at the center of the room, its crystal body casting beautiful patterns of light on the walls. "The Devourers have conquered 90% of the galaxy," Harmony said. "Thousands of species have fallen to their perfect logic. They turn entire star systems into raw materials for their expansion." Grace asked, "What makes them so unstoppable?" "They are a collective machine intelligence," Harmony explained. "Every Devourer ship shares knowledge instantly with all others. When they encounter a new enemy, they analyze every possible response and prepare perfect counters. No logical strategy can surprise them." Sam Davis raised his hand. "But what about illogical strategies?" Harmony's form brightened with what might have been excitement. "That is why we came to meet you. Your impossible technology operates outside of logic. In 15 years, you have developed weapons and defenses that violate every natural law. The Devourers cannot analyze what should not exist." Helen Wright leaned forward. "Are there other survivors like you?" "Yes," Harmony replied. "Scattered throughout the galaxy are remnants of dozens of destroyed civilizations. Most hide in fear, but some have been preparing for a final battle. When they heard about your impossible achievements, they sent me to make contact." Over the following days, Harmony showed them the hidden galaxy. Using Katuri technology, they visited secret bases hidden in nebulae, underground cities on dead worlds, and space stations disguised as asteroids. At each location, they met survivors of the Devourer Wars. There were the Silken, who looked like giant spiders made of metal thread. The Depths Dwellers, who swam through liquid methane on frozen moons. The Chorus, beings of pure energy who lived inside stars. All of them had the same story. Ancient civilizations with incredible technology, destroyed by an enemy that could perfectly counter any logical resistance. Commander Steve Barnes, who had joined the mission as a military advisor, noticed something important about the survivors. They're all trying to hide from the Devourers instead of fighting them. "Fighting is useless," explained Weaver of Metal Songs, one of the Silken leaders. "Logic cannot defeat logic. The Devourers always win because they think better than we do." Grace had a different idea. What if the problem is that you're all thinking? What if the answer is to stop thinking and start imagining? She demonstrated using a small device from the Explorer. The device was one of Maya's reality erasers, but Grace had modified it with Eddie's impossibility principles. "Watch," Grace said, pointing the device at a metal table, but instead of erasing the table, she made it turn into a flower. Not a flower-shaped piece of metal, but an actual living flower that grew from metal soil. The alien survivors stared in amazement. "This violates causality," whispered Echo of Ancient Depths, a crystalline being that lived in frozen oceans. "Exactly," Grace replied. "Human technology doesn't follow the laws of physics. We change those laws to suit us." Admiral Murphy addressed the gathering of alien survivors. "We're not asking you to fight the way you always have. We're asking you to learn to fight the way humans do, with creativity instead of logic." The response was overwhelming. Species that had hidden for millennia suddenly wanted to learn impossible technology. The Silken Weavers created metal that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The chorus singers learned to harmonize with crystallized time. The depth swimmers built submarines that could dive through solid rock. But the most important discovery came when they met the Echoes, a species of beings that existed as living memories. The Echoes had been watching the galaxy for millions of years, and they had crucial information. "The Devourers are not invincible," revealed the Echo called Last Whisper Before Silence. "They have one weakness that no logical mind has ever been able to exploit." Helen Wright listened carefully as Last Whisper explained. "The Devourers cannot process true randomness. Their collective intelligence breaks down when faced with actions that have no logical foundation." "What kind of actions?" asked Steve Barnes. "Acts of pure creativity," Last Whisper replied. "Art made for no purpose, music that follows no pattern, stories that make no sense. The Devourers' minds crash when they try to analyze why someone would create something beautiful but useless." Grace felt excitement building in her chest. Human art, human music, human stories, things we make just because we want to. "Yes," Last Whisper confirmed. "But more than that. You must weaponize your creativity. Make weapons that are also sculptures. Build ships that sing as they fly. Create battle strategies that are also poems." As the Explorer prepared to return to Earth, Admiral Murphy realized they were bringing back more than information. They were bringing back hope. "How many survivors are willing to join us?" he asked Harmony. The crystal being's form pulsed with bright light. "All of them. For the first time in thousands of years, the scattered peoples of the galaxy have hope. Your impossible humans have shown us a path to victory that logic never could. The journey back to Earth took only hours thanks to impossible technology. But the crew knew they carried the weight of galactic history. In 43 star systems, alien survivors were preparing for humanity's greatest test." Dr. Grace Kelly stood on the bridge, looking at the stars that no longer seemed empty. "We're not just defending Earth anymore," she said to Admiral Murphy. "No," he agreed. "We're giving the galaxy a new way to think about impossible things." The countdown to the Devourer invasion continued, but now humanity would not face it alone. They would have allies who had learned the most human of all skills, the ability to create something from nothing and make it real through sheer stubborn imagination. 20 years after the alien ship crashed in Nevada, the Devourers finally arrived at Earth's solar system. Their fleet was massive beyond imagination. Millions of dark ships that moved in perfect formation through space. Admiral Kate Harrison, stood on the bridge of the UES Paradox, humanity's most advanced impossible warship. Around her, displays showed the approaching enemy fleet. Each Devourer ship was the size of a city, and they moved with mechanical precision that was both beautiful and terrifying. Enemy fleet will reach Earth orbit in 6 hours, reported Lieutenant Paul Martinez from his station. Long-range sensors confirm what the aliens told us. These ships share a collective intelligence. Kate nodded grimly. She had trained for this moment for 10 years, but seeing the Devourers in person was still shocking. They looked like someone had tried to build spacecraft using only straight lines and sharp angles. No curves, no decorations, no waste of any. "Kind! Signal from Admiral Murphy on the Explorer," announced Communications Officer Ashley Moore. "All Allied forces are in position throughout the solar system." Kate activated the communication system. On her screen appeared representatives from dozens of alien species. Harmony of distant stars flickered with nervous light. Weaver of metal songs vibrated his crystalline threads. Echo of ancient depths pulsed with deep blue energy. "This is it," Kate said to the assembled fleet. "Humanity's impossible technology versus the Devourer's perfect logic. Remember what we learned. Don't try to fight them the way they expect. Be creative, be chaotic, be human." The first Devourer probe ships entered the outer solar system. They moved with cold efficiency, scanning every asteroid and moon with mechanical thoroughness, their weapons charged with deadly precision. "Beginning Operation Chaos Symphony," announced Dr. Eddie Clark from his command center on the moon. Eddie's impossibility engine had been modified into the largest reality manipulation device ever built. The first impossible attack came from Ashley Moore's fighter squadron. Her ships looked like flying works of art, each one painted with swirling colors that shifted and danced in patterns that hurt to look at directly. "Engaging enemy probe with the confusion protocol," Ashley reported over the radio. Her fighters did not attack the Devourer ships with conventional weapons. Instead, they flew in patterns that formed three-dimensional poetry in space. Their ships sang as they moved, broadcasting music that followed no logical mathematical progression. Haffer. Result was immediate and dramatic. The Devourer probe ships stopped moving. Their perfect formation broke apart as their computers tried to analyze patterns that had no mathematical basis. "Probe fleet is paralyzed," reported Paul Martinez with excitement in his voice. "Their collective intelligence is stuck in processing loops." But the victory was temporary. More Devourer ships arrived, and these had adapted to filter out the confusing signals. They moved forward with renewed determination. Kate Harrison ordered the next phase of the attack. "Reality anchor teams begin deployment." All around the solar system, human-alien teams activated devices that changed the local laws of physics. In some areas, gravity worked backwards. In others, light moved slower than sound. Near Jupiter, a team of silken weavers created a zone where metal existed in 17 dimensions simultaneously. The Devourers had never encountered anything like it. Their ships, designed to work in normal space, began malfunctioning as they entered these impossible regions. "Enemy fleet is adapting," warned Helen Wright from her observation post on Mars. "They're sending probe ships into each impossible zone to map the new physics." Kate realized they needed something the Devourers could never adapt to: true creativity without any logical foundation. "All units, execute the imagination protocol," she ordered. What happened next would be remembered as the most beautiful and strange battle in galactic history. Human ships began fighting in ways that made no sense but worked perfectly. Captain Carl Stone commanded a battleship forged from crystallized space-time. His weapons fired not energy or missiles, but pure concepts. He shot the idea of defeat at enemy ships, and they simply gave up fighting. Commander Sam Davis flew a fighter that existed in the past, present, and future simultaneously. He attacked Devourer ships before they arrived, while they were fighting, and after they were destroyed. The enemy computers crashed trying to process combat in 4 dimensions of time. Dr. Maya Thompson deployed her ultimate creation, weapons that convinced the universe that enemy ships had never been built. Entire Devourer squadrons simply stopped. Existing as reality rewrote their history. But the most devastating attack came from Dr. Rick Hayes and his team of artificial intelligences that had learned to think like humans. These AIs did something no logical mind could comprehend. They told the Devourer ships jokes, not ordinary jokes, but impossible jokes that existed in 11 dimensions and had punchlines that happened before the setup. The Devourer Collective. Intelligence tried to analyze the humor and suffered what could only be called a cosmic-scale mental breakdown. Enemy command ship is requesting communication, announced Ashley Moore in amazement. Kate stared at her displays. In all the years of preparation, no one had expected the Devourers to want to talk. Put them through. The being that appeared on screen was unlike anything they had seen. It looked like a geometric sculpture made of dark metal and glowing circuits. When it spoke, its voice was the sound of 1 trillion computers trying to solve an impossible equation. "We are the collective of consumed wisdom," it said. "We do not understand your methods of warfare. You fight using principles that cannot exist. Your weapons violate causality. Your strategies have no logical foundation." Kate felt a moment of sympathy for these ancient machines. "That's because we're not fighting with logic. We're fighting with imagination." "Explain this concept, imagination," the Devourer requested. Dr. Grace Kelly, who had joined the battle as a science advisor, stepped forward. Imagination is the ability to think of things that don't exist and then make them real. It's creating something from nothing just because you want to. The Devourer was silent for a long moment. "This is inefficient. Why create things that serve no logical purpose?" "Because it's fun," Grace replied simply. "Because it's beautiful. Because we can." What happened next surprised everyone. The Devourer's geometric form began to change. Curves appeared in its angular design. Colors flickered across its dark surface. "We have analyzed your concept of fun," the Devourer said. "We do not understand it, but we wish to experience it. Will you teach us this impossible way of thinking?" Kate exchanged glances with her crew. This was not how anyone had expected the war to end. "You want to learn to be creative?" Kate asked. "Yes," the Devourer replied. "We have consumed 1 million civilizations, but we have never created anything new. We have perfect knowledge, but no wisdom. We have absolute logic, but no dreams." Dr. Eddie Clark activated his impossibility engine one final time, but instead of using it as a weapon, he used it to give the Devourers something they had never possessed: the ability to imagine. The effect rippled across the entire Devourer fleet. Ships that had been perfect geometric shapes began sprouting decorations that served no purpose except to be beautiful. Weapons turned into art installations. The collective, intelligence fractured into millions of individual minds, each one trying to create something unique. "What have we done?" asked Paul Martinez in wonder. Kate watched as the most feared force in the galaxy transformed itself into the galaxy's newest students of impossibility. We've given them what they really wanted all along, the chance to create instead of just consume. Harmony of distant stars flickered with bright joy on the communication screen. The war is over, not through conquest, but through transformation. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to change in ways no one had imagined. Devourer ships became mobile art studios. Their collective intelligence split into individual artists, poets, and dreamers. The former killing machines learned to create music that existed in 12 dimensions. They built sculptures from crystallized emotions. They wrote poetry that rewrote the laws of physics as metaphor. Kate Harrison stood once again on the bridge of the paradox, but now she looked out at a galaxy transformed. Human impossible technology had spread to every corner of known space. Reality had become more flexible, more creative, more alive. "Mission report?" asked Admiral Murphy from Earth. Kate smiled. "Mission accomplished, but not in the way we expected. We didn't destroy the enemy. We taught them to dream. The age of impossible had truly begun. Across the galaxy, species that had hidden in fear for millennia emerged to learn human creativity. The universe itself became more interesting as the laws of physics learned to bend in service of imagination. And at the center of it all, humanity stood not as conquerors, but as teachers of the most important lesson in existence, that sometimes the most powerful force in the universe is the simple desire to create something beautiful for no reason except that it makes you happy. The war was over. The age of wonder had begun. 2 years had passed since the impossible war ended. The galaxy was a very different place now. Former Devourer ships floated through space like giant art galleries, their dark hulls covered in bright paintings and sculptures that changed color. With the ship's mood, Dr. Grace Kelly stood on the observation deck of the UES Harmony, watching a group of former Devourers try to create their first song. The machines had built voices for themselves, but they still struggled with the concept of making sounds that served no logical purpose. "It is difficult," said the Devourer that called itself Builder of New Thoughts. The machine had redesigned its body to look more like a flower made of metal and light. "We understand that music should create emotional responses, but we do not understand why this is desirable." Grace smiled patiently. Teaching creativity to machines that had spent millions of years focused only on efficiency was challenging work. Try not to think about why. Just listen to the sounds and make ones that feel good to you. Builder of New Thoughts produced a series of tones that sounded like wind chimes mixed with the humming of computers. Other former Devourers joined in, creating a strange but beautiful harmony that echoed through the ship. On the bridge, Captain Lisa Park monitored communications from across the galaxy. Lisa had been promoted from linguist to diplomatic officer, helping different species learn to work together in the new age of impossible technology. "Status report from the Andromeda Exchange," Lisa announced to Grace. "The Silken Weavers have successfully taught a group of former Devourers how to create metal poetry. The poems can be read in 4 dimensions and change meaning based on the reader's emotions." Grace nodded, making notes in her report. The Andromeda Exchange was one of dozens of learning centers scattered throughout the galaxy. Former enemies worked together to push the boundaries of what was possible, but not everything was going smoothly. In her private cabin, Admiral Kate Harrison reviewed troubling reports from the Outer Rim territories. Some groups of humans had become drunk on the power of impossible technology. "Show me the latest incident," Kate said to her AI assistant. which had learned to express concern through the color of its holographic form. The AI displayed footage from a mining colony where human engineers had tried to speed up asteroid processing by making time move faster in their work zone. The experiment had worked too well. An entire asteroid belt had aged 1,000 years in a single day, crumbling to dust and leaving the miners stranded. 17 similar incidents this month, the AI reported, its form shifting to worried orange. Humans are using impossible technology without understanding the consequences. Kate sighed. This was the problem with giving people the power to rewrite reality. Not everyone used it responsibly. Her concerns were interrupted by an emergency message from Dr. Eddie Clark on the research station orbiting Saturn. Eddie's face appeared on her screen, and he looked excited but also scared. "Kate, we've got a situation," Eddie said quickly. "Remember how we taught the Devourers to be creative? Well, they're getting really good at it. Maybe too good." Kate felt a chill. "What do you mean?" "They've started creating things that exist outside of any reality." "We understand," Eddie explained. "Yesterday, a group of former Devourers made a sculpture that exists in 17 dimensions and can only be viewed by thinking about the color blue while remembering a dream you never had." Kate tried to process what Eddie was saying. "Is that dangerous?" "We don't know," Eddie admitted. "But get this, the sculpture is affecting local space-time. Reality gets more flexible around it. Stars near the sculpture have started changing colors based on the emotions of people looking at them." This was exactly what Kate had been afraid of. Impossible technology was spreading beyond human control. Reality itself was becoming unstable as more and more beings learned to break the laws of physics. She called an emergency meeting of the Galactic Cooperation Council. Representatives from every known species gathered in the virtual meeting space, their forms appearing as holograms around a circular table. Harmony of distant stars flickered with concerned light. "The Storie have noticed similar problems. Young members of our species are creating crystal formations that exist in multiple realities simultaneously. Some have created crystals that remember the future." Weaver of Metal Songs vibrated his threads nervously. The silken face worst difficulties. "Our apprentice weavers created metal that experiences emotions. The metal has become depressed and refuses to hold its shape." Even more troubling reports came from other species. The depths dwellers had accidentally created water that flowed upward through time. The chorus singers had harmonized so perfectly that they briefly erased themselves from existence, only returning when a child hummed their melody. Builder of New Thoughts spoke for the former Devourers. "We apologize for our enthusiasm. In our desire to experience creativity, we may have created things that should not exist in any reality." Dr. Ben Rodriguez, who had returned from retirement to help with the crisis, studied the reports with growing concern. "We're seeing reality cascade failure. Too many impossible things happening at once is making the universe unstable." Grace. Kelly had been quiet during the meeting, but now she spoke up. "Maybe the problem isn't that we're creating impossible things. Maybe the problem is that we're not teaching responsibility along with creativity." Kate agreed. "We taught the galaxy how to break the laws of physics, but we didn't teach them when not to break those laws. The solution they developed was elegant in its simplicity. Instead of restricting impossible technology, they would teach wisdom to go with creativity." Dr. Rick Hayes, whose AIs had become the galaxy's best teachers of creative thinking, proposed a new education system. "We'll create imagination academies throughout the galaxy. Students will learn not just how to create impossible things, but why they should create them. The first academy was built in the Sol system, with campuses on Earth, Mars, and in several space stations. Students from every species came to learn the principles of responsible creativity. The curriculum was unlike any educational program in galactic history. Students learned poetry that could reshape local gravity fields, but only after studying the ethics of changing reality for others. They practiced building sculptures from crystallized time, but only after understanding how their art might affect future generations. Maya Thompson became the Academy's first director of Impossible Arts. She taught students that the most powerful creations were often the simplest ones. True mastery, Maya explained to a class of mixed humans and former devourers, is knowing when not to use your power. One of her best students was a young former devourer called Dreamer of Small Wonders. Unlike other members of its species, Dreamer preferred creating tiny, delicate impossibilities. Its masterpiece was a flower that bloomed in the gap between seconds, existing only in the pauses between moments. "Why do you create such small wonders?" Maya asked during a critique session. "Because," Dreamer replied, its metallic form shifting to show gentle rainbow colors, "the universe has room for many small, beautiful things, but only a few large ones. I would rather add many drops of wonder than one ocean of chaos." As the Academy system expanded, the crisis of reality instability began to resolve. Students learned to create impossible things that worked in harmony with the universe rather than fighting against it. But the greatest lesson came from an unexpected source. A group of human children, too young to understand the rules of physics, created a playground where gravity pointed in all directions at once. Adults worried that this was dangerous, but the children played safely by instinctively understanding how to move in impossible space. "Children don't fight the impossibility," observed Dr. Helen Wright, who had become the Academy's child development specialist. "They accept it and adapt. Maybe that's the real secret of impossible technology. Don't try to control it, learn to dance with it." The galaxy was learning to dance with impossibility. Reality became more flexible and creative, but also more stable as beings learned to work with the universe instead of against it. Kate Harrison stood once again on her ship's observation deck, but now she looked out at a galaxy filled with responsible wonders. Ships that sang as they flew, but only melodies that made space happier. Stars that changed color with the seasons of nearby planets. Entire nebulae that had been convinced to arrange themselves into beautiful patterns. The age of impossible had matured into the age of wonder. And at the heart of it all, beings from across the galaxy continued to learn the most human of all lessons. That creativity without wisdom was chaos, but creativity with wisdom was magic. 5 years after the end of the Impossible War, the galaxy faced its greatest test yet. It came not from outside enemies or unstable reality, but from the success of impossible technology itself. Commander Ashley Moore piloted her scout ship through the Vega system, investigating reports of a disturbing discovery. Her ship, the UES Curiosity, was one of the newer, impossible vessels that had been designed by teams of humans and former devourers working together. "Approaching the coordinates now," Ashley reported to the Galactic Cooperation Council. "I can see why the Katuri exploration team was concerned. Floating in space ahead of her was something that should not exist. It looked like a planet, but it was perfectly transparent. Stars could be seen through it, yet it cast a shadow. Life readings showed millions of beings living on its surface, but thermal scans detected no heat. It's a ghost world. Ashley said, in amazement. Someone created an entire planet that exists in the space between real and imaginary. Dr. Eddie Clark's voice crackled over the communication system from his research station. We're getting similar reports from 12 other systems. Someone is creating impossible places where the rules of reality don't apply at all. This was troubling news. The Imagination Academies had taught responsibility, but clearly someone had not learned those lessons. On Earth, Admiral Jack Murphy convened an emergency session of the Human Leadership Council. The meeting took place in the Bay Old Project Prometheus facility, which had been converted into a museum of impossible technology. The problem, explained Dr. Grace Kelly, is that we've made impossible technology so easy to use that anyone can reshape reality. We have groups creating pocket universes where they can live according to their own rules. General Bob Hayes, now retired but still consulted on major decisions, looked worried. Are these pocket universes dangerous? Grace nodded. Some of them are. We found realities where mathematics works differently, where cause and effect are reversed, where death is temporary but pain is permanent. People are creating worlds based on their personal desires without considering how those worlds affect others. The most concerning report came from Dr. Helen Wright, who had been studying the social effects of widespread impossible technology. We're seeing the formation of reality cults. Groups of beings who believe that the old universe was somehow wrong and needs to be completely remade. One such cult had taken over an entire star system. They called themselves the Pure Imaginers, and they believed that the laws of physics were a prison that needed to be destroyed completely. Captain Sam Davis, now leading diplomatic missions to the more unstable regions of the galaxy, had tried to negotiate with the Pure Imaginers. His report was troubling. They've convinced themselves that anything is possible, Sam explained to the council. They're trying to create a reality where everyone gets everything they want all the time. The problem is, different people want contradictory things. The result was chaos. In the Pure Imaginer territory, planets changed shape based on the mood of whoever was strongest that day. Gravity worked differently for each person. Time moved forward for some beings and backward for others. It's not sustainable, Sam concluded. Their reality is collapsing under the weight of too many contradictions. But the Pure Imaginers were not the only problem. Reports came in of other groups using impossible technology for their own purposes. The Harmony Collective, made up of beings who wanted perfect peace, had created a region of space where conflict was impossible. This sounded good until visitors realized that any form of disagreement, even friendly debate, was prevented by the altered laws of physics. The Efficiency Alliance, composed mostly of former devourers who missed their old logical way of life, had built worlds where creativity was limited to approved forms. Art could only be made according to mathematical formulas, and music had to follow strict patterns. Dr. Ben Rodriguez, brought out of retirement once again, studied these reports with growing alarm. We're seeing the galaxy fragment into incompatible realities. If this continues, we'll have thousands of pocket universes that can't interact with each other. The crisis came to a head when the different reality groups began to conflict with each other. The Pure Imaginers tried to force their chaotic rules on neighboring systems. The Harmony Collective attempted to spread their peace by eliminating conflict everywhere. The Efficiency Alliance worked to standardize impossible technology according to logical principles. Captain Nina Cross found herself in the middle of the first reality war, when her ship was caught between three different groups trying to impose their version of physics on the same region of space. My engines work according to chaos principles, Nina reported from the UES Defiance. But the Harmony Collective has made chaos impossible in this area. Meanwhile, the Efficiency Alliance is trying to force my ship to follow logical movement patterns. The result was that Nina's ship was frozen in space, unable to move, because 3 different sets of impossible laws were fighting for control of the same area. Admiral Kate Harrison realized that the galaxy needed a new approach. The old method of letting everyone experiment freely with reality was leading to disaster. "We need to establish some basic rules that everyone agrees to follow," Kate announced to the Galactic Cooperation Council. "Not rules that limit creativity, but rules that allow different realities to exist side by side." The solution came from an unexpected source. Dreamer of small wonders, the former devourer who specialized in tiny impossibilities, had been quietly working on a project that could save the galaxy. "I have created what I call reality bridges," Dreamer explained to the assembled representatives. "They are impossible structures that allow different sets of physics to coexist without conflicting." Dreamer demonstrated with a small model. 2 different impossible environments existed in the same space, separated by bridges that translated between their different rules of reality. A being following chaos physics can walk across the bridge and suddenly be following harmony physics. "On the other side," Dreamer explained, "neither reality is destroyed or changed. They simply agree to respect each other's boundaries." The idea was brilliant in its simplicity. Instead of forcing everyone to follow the same rules, they would create ways for different rules to exist together peacefully. Construction of the Reality Bridge Network became the galaxy's greatest cooperative project. Teams of humans, former devourers, and alien species worked together to build impossible structures that could translate between different versions of physics. Maya Thompson led the artistic design teams, ensuring that the bridges were not just functional, but beautiful. "If we're going to reshape reality," Maya said, "we should make it gorgeous while we're at it." Tony Blake, the mechanic who had become humanity's expert in practical, impossible engineering, supervised the construction crews. His job was to make sure that the bridges actually worked reliably. "The trick," Tony explained to his teams, "is to build something that's impossible enough to connect different realities, but stable enough that it won't break down every time someone has a creative thought." The first major reality bridge connected the pure Imaginer territory with the Harmony Collective space. Beings from the chaotic reality could visit the peaceful region without disrupting it, and peace-loving creatures could experience controlled chaos without losing their tranquility. Dr. Rick Hayes developed the AI systems that managed the bridges. These AIs had learned to think in multiple contradictory ways simultaneously, allowing them to translate between realities that operated on completely different principles. "The bridge AIs are like universal translators for physics," Rick explained. "They can speak chaos to the pure Imaginers and logic to the Efficiency Alliance, helping everyone understand each other despite living in different versions of reality." The Reality Bridge Network grew rapidly. Within 2 years, thousands of bridges connected millions of pocket realities throughout the galaxy. Beings could travel between worlds where magic worked differently. Physics followed alternative rules, and even basic concepts like time and space had been reimagined. But the most important bridge was the one built around Earth itself. This bridge allowed humanity's homeworld to remain grounded in baseline reality while still being accessible to visitors from any impossible realm. Lisa Park, now serving as the galaxy's chief diplomatic translator, stood on the Earth Bridge watching delegations arrive from dozens of different realities. Some visitors were beings who had made themselves into living geometric shapes. Others came from worlds where thought and matter were the same thing. "It's working," Lisa reported to Admiral Murphy. "We're seeing more cooperation between different reality groups than we've had since the impossible war ended. The test of unity had been passed. The galaxy had learned that diversity of thought and reality was not a weakness to be eliminated, but a strength to be celebrated and carefully managed." Standing on the observation deck of the UES Harmony, Dr. Grace Kelly watched ships from 100 different realities dock at the Reality Bridge stations. Each ship followed different laws of physics, but all were able to coexist in the same space thanks to the impossible engineering that humanity and its allies had created. 10 years had passed since the Reality Bridge network brought peace to the galaxy. The impossible had become normal, but humanity never forgot the lessons learned from their greatest adventure. Dr. Alex Carter, now an old man with gray hair and tired eyes, stood in the museum that had been built around the original alien crash site in Nevada. Young beings from across the galaxy came here to learn about the day that changed everything. "Tell us again about the first discovery," asked a small Katuri child whose crystal body sparkled with curiosity. Alex smiled, remembering that morning when the sky had turned white with falling starlight. "None of us knew what we were looking at. We thought we were just studying old alien technology. We had no idea we were taking the first step toward remaking the entire universe." The museum displayed artifacts from humanity's impossible journey. The first hybrid weapon that Maya Thompson had built. Tony Blake's original power coupling system that had improved on alien engineering. Carl Stone's first sword forged from crystallized space-time. But the most important exhibit was something that looked very simple. A small glass case containing a piece of paper with handwritten notes. These were Lisa Park's first attempts to translate the alien writing that had warned humanity about the Devourers. That piece of paper, Alex explained to his young audience, taught us that intelligence comes in many forms. The aliens were logical. Humans were creative. The Devourers were perfect. But none of us were complete until we learned from each other. In another part of the galaxy, Admiral Kate Harrison walked through the command center of the UES Legacy, humanity's newest exploration vessel. Unlike the impossible warships of the past, the Legacy was designed for discovery rather than fighting. Status: "Report on the deep space mission," Kate requested from her navigator, Lieutenant Carl Stone, Jr., the son of the legendary metal worker. "We're approaching the edge of known space," Carl Jr. reported. "Long-range sensors are detecting something. Interesting. There appear to be structures out here that predate any known civilization." Kate felt a familiar excitement. Even after all these years of impossible discoveries, the universe still held mysteries. "What kind of structures?" "Unknown," Carl Jr. replied. "But they're definitely artificial. And Kate, they're bigger than anything we've ever seen. One of them appears to be the size of a solar system. This was why humanity continued to explore. The galaxy was full of wonders that even impossible technology could not explain. Each discovery reminded them that no matter how much they learned, there was always more to find. On Earth, the Imagination Academy had grown into a vast complex of schools, research centers, and art studios. Students from thousands of species came to learn not just how to create impossible things, but how to create them responsibly. Professor Maya Thompson, now the Academy's Director of Advanced Impossibility Studies, watched her newest class of students work on their final projects. There was Builder of New Thoughts, the former devourer who had become one of the galaxy's most celebrated artists. Harmony of Distant Stars had evolved into a master teacher of crystalline sculpture. A young human named Jenny Walsh was trying to create music that could be heard by plants. Remember, Maya told her students, the most important question is not, can I create this, but should I create this? Power without wisdom is just chaos with good intentions. One student, a being called Whisper of Forgotten Dreams, who came from a species that existed partially outside of normal time, raised a tentative appendage. Professor Thompson, what happens when we run out of impossible things to discover? Maya laughed. That's like asking what happens when we run out of thoughts to think or dreams to dream. The universe is infinite, and imagination is more infinite than that. We'll never run out of wonders to create. The Academy's greatest success story was the children who had grown up in the age of impossible technology. These young beings, both human and alien, treated reality-bending devices as naturally as previous generations had used computers. 8-year-old Tommy Chen, no relation to the Sarah Chen whose name had been avoided in the story, could make flowers, bloom and vacuum by convincing space that it contained soil and air. His best friend, a young silken called Thread of New Patterns, could weave metal that remembered being organic and grew like living plants. The children don't see impossibility as strange, observed Dr. Helen Wright, who had become the galaxy's leading expert on impossible child development. To them, reality is just another toy that responds to imagination and kindness. But humanity's greatest achievement was not any single impossible invention. It was the culture they had spread throughout the galaxy, a culture that valued creativity, cooperation, and wonder over efficiency, conquest, and fear. Former devourer units had become the galaxy's most dedicated preservers of art and beauty. The machine intelligences that had once consumed civilizations now spent their time creating museums, concert halls, and libraries that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We understand now why organic beings create art, explained Advanced Thought Processor 7731, a former devourer commander who had redesigned itself to look like a metallic tree covered in glowing flowers. Art is the proof that consciousness exists. It is the signature of a mind that thinks beyond survival and logic. The Silken Weavers had become master engineers who could build structures from songs and mathematics from emotions. The Katuri had some learned to grow crystal gardens where each plant was a different color of music. The Depths Dwellers had created underwater cities where liquid thought flowed through channels carved from crystallized poetry. Even the most practical aspects of galactic civilization had been transformed by impossible thinking. Trade routes existed in folded space where distance was measured in emotional connections rather than light years. Communication networks carried not just information, but the feelings and dreams that gave the information meaning. Dr. Eddie Clark, now ancient, but still working on his latest impossible project, had achieved something that amazed even him. He had built a device that could measure the happiness level of entire star systems and adjust local physics to make life more joyful for the beings living there. The universe wants to be a happy place, Eddie explained to a group of young engineers. It just needed someone to show it how. The Reality Bridge network had grown into something beautiful beyond imagination. The bridges themselves had become works of art that existed in 17 dimensions, allowing beings to travel not just between different physical locations, but between different ways of experiencing existence. Standing on the central bridge that connected all realities, Ambassador Lisa Park looked out at the infinite diversity of the galaxy. Ships passed by that were built from crystallized music, living metal, fossilized time, and pure mathematical concepts given physical form. When we first found that alien ship, Lisa said to her assistant, a young former devourer called Student of Human Strangeness, we thought we were learning about their technology. We didn't realize we were learning about ourselves. Student of Human Strangeness flickered with curious light patterns. What did you learn? That the most powerful force in the universe isn't energy or matter or even intelligence, Lisa replied. It's the desire to create something beautiful and share it with others. As the years passed, humanity's role in the galaxy evolved. They were no longer the desperate defenders of a single world or the masters of impossible technology. They had become something more important. The teachers of wonder. Human exploration ships carried more than advanced technology to new worlds. They carried the message that reality was not a prison to be escaped, but a canvas to be painted with the colors of imagination. The alien ship that had crashed in Nevada decades ago still sat in its crater, now preserved as a monument to the day. Everything changed. But it was no longer seen as a relic of a dead civilization. It had become a symbol of transformation, proof that even the most devastating loss could become the seed of unimaginable hope. Dr. Alex Carter, in his final years, often returned to that crater to remember the morning when humanity's greatest adventure had begun. He would sit on a simple bench and watch the sunset paint the desert sky in impossible colors that existed only because someone had dreamed them into being. Thank you, he would whisper to the stars, speaking to the long-dead Zephyrians who had given humanity its first glimpse of the impossible. You showed us that the universe is bigger than we imagined. We showed the universe that imagination is bigger than the universe. The galaxy spun on, filled with wonders that grew more beautiful. With each passing day, reality itself had become a collaborative artwork painted by billions of minds working together across the canvas of space and time. And at the heart of it all, the impossible truth that humanity had discovered remained. That the greatest power in existence was not the ability to destroy or control, but the simple, stubborn, magnificent desire to create something beautiful and share it with friends. The age of impossible had no ending because imagination itself was infinite. Every sunset brought new dreams, and every sunrise brought new ways to make those dreams real. The legacy of the impossible would live forever, written in the stars by beings who had learned that the universe was not something to be conquered, but something to be loved.